Dumelang, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and welcome to the launch of Awakened. Awakened to My True Self by Nonkululeko Gobodo. This is a book that has been coming for a very long time. And thanks to COVID, Mam Nonkululeko had time to start penning her thoughts and pouring her heart out. And I say pouring, I'm using that word deliberately because the level of vulnerability in this book, it's incredible. And that's why some of us are not authors, because we are not capable of reaching deep within us and having honest reflections about ourselves, about our mistakes, about our successes, and the stories behind those successes. I know that she's been approached many times to have her story told over the decades, and she wasn't ready to tell the story. And I'm glad you've waited, Mam Nonkululeko, because when you read the book, you can tell that this time around she was ready to tell the story. It's very evident in the book. I know Mam Nonkululeko as a powerhouse. She is, just as you know her, the first South Africa's female chartered accountant, former chairman and founder of Nonkululeko Gobodo, which is the largest black accounting and auditing firm. She's a leading figure in the business world. She has won several awards. She really tore her way into a male-dominated industry and flourished. But what I didn't know was the human behind the success story. I didn't know about the pain. I didn't know the sacrifices. I didn't know the mistakes behind the super woman that I have come to know until I read this book. I couldn't put it down, and I did tell her this week that this book has had such a massive impact on my life. And I wasn't saying that because I was trying to impress her, but it's because it's helped me start my own journey of healing. And I want to encourage you that if you haven't gotten your book yet, we still have a few copies, right, Sandy? So please get your copy, and Mam Nonkululeko is going to be signing some of your copies outside. I promise you, it's gonna have a great impact on your life, and we're going to be unpacking some of the themes in the book. But right now, I want you to help me welcome Mam Nonkululeko, who's going to just take a few minutes to tell you about the journey to birthing this book. So let's give it up for her.
Thank you so much, guys, for coming. Wow. You know, you think about writing a book, you are pressurized. People are offering to write the book. You're like, okay. And then there's a time, I think it was in 2019, when I decided I'm going to write this book and I'm going to write it myself. Because who can tell the story better than I? But again, this fear of, how are you going to write a book, really? You're a chartered accountant, just a chartered accountant. It's powerful people who write books, but God is good because He encouraged me. You can do it. You can do it. And then you start to write the book. You have a first page. I'm like, I've written a whole page. Wow. And then we finish a chapter. And then we think, oh, I can do this thing, man. I can do this thing. And then you realize that writing a book actually is a journey. It's not something that you can do quickly. You write, you put it down. You write, you put it down. So when I then finally decided, it was like, okay, people are expecting this inspirational book from me. But I've had a life of ups and downs. I don't want to write just an inspirational book. Sure, I must inspire people. Then I decided, okay, I'm going to tell it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay, how ugly? And people are saying, really? Are you sure? People just like nice stories. I was like, the ugly. Okay, I don't know how ugly. But as we're writing the book, courage comes. Even this one. Yes, I'm going to say it. Are you sure? Even this one. Yes, I'm going to say it. Then we write the book, we give it away. And when Yamkela says, Mama, iyahamba ke ngoku. Bheka kwi-printers. Ndiyapanika ke ngoku. But yo, really? There's no turning back now. It's gone. But what comforted me was when I met Clement this week. Sorry, I'm coughing. I've lost my voice, whatever. So he says, Mom, congratulations on the book. Wow, wow, wow. And my favorite chapter is chapter 5. Yeah. You wouldn't see the reaction. I was like, what? That chapter, the one I'm scared about. He says, it's his favorite. I mean, this is a journalist now, not Yamkela. I was like, wow, relax, Nonko. God knows everything. He knew that he wants to heal people. And we have to say these things, because what used to frustrate me is that you read, someone is telling their story of healing, and they say, then I went through this, and then I got healed. I'm like, wow, how did you get healed? How? So I'm still left lost. So that's why I said, I'm going to give details as to how did I get healed. So healing is a big theme of this book. The second theme is the issues of gender and race. Because, we're Black people, Black women, you cover it all. My former partners are here, they know the journey, the pain. So we have to tell that story and how you survived it. Black women always dismissed. You have to tell that story. So race and gender is one of those themes. And then, of course, I'm passionate about business and leadership. And I thought, I'm writing this book for young people. And I want young people to know that life is full of ups and downs, but you can rise up again and rebuild again, which is why I was open in this book.
You refer to it as a saving grace when you were sent to the panel beating to work. Were you working as a bookkeeper then,
yes.
I think?
Yes.
Is that where you fell in love with chartered accounting?
Yes. That's why, remember growing up in these Black communities, I didn't even know there was such a profession when I was trying to figure out, until I was there at the panel beating shop and introduced to accounting, and then auditors would come and audit the books. And in fact, this auditing firm is actually Black. Then I learned about Professor Nkuhlu. That's when then I fell in love with chartered accountants.
Yeah. And by the way, the panel beating company was owned by her parents. And yeah, then they sent her there. Okay. And I think at the time you had taken a break, I think for a year.
No, after the pregnancy.
After the pregnancy, yeah. You're trying to figure out your life.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm glad we've laid the foundation with your childhood and how you grew up and the perceptions you had. And we'll touch more on this because chapter 5, my favorite book, my favorite chapter, touches a lot on that because it's about healing. And we'll reference that a lot. Let's talk about when your career started. You became famous like this when you qualified as a chartered accountant. You didn't understand how big a deal it was, and then you suddenly saw cameras coming to your home. Just explain to us how you dealt with that, because you didn't know at the time you were the first Black female chartered accountant until you were told, and there was just media attention on you.
Yeah, I want to say that I enjoyed my success for one day. It was my success. Yeah. I achieved the impossible, married with 2 kids. And this difficult thing that everybody was telling me that I was going to fail. Then the following day, it turns out I'm the first. But if even that following day I'm the first, okay, I never really cared about this first thing. There were people who wanted to be the first, but I was not one of them. So it didn't dawn on me what that means until media descended onto my small town in Amtata. So my first reaction was like, no, guys, I did this for me. So please, guys, I'm just a shy girl from the Transkei. I did this for me. Until that journalist from the SABC, the uncle was asking me about his name. I'm like, how can I remember? It was 35 years ago. He sobered me up and said, no, this is not about you. You are now a role model for young people, for women. And he was absolutely right.
Do you sometimes feel the pressure of being the first? Because you don't choose that. And I often hear people say, it's hard to be me. Well, them, not me. Jeez. I have an easy life. Chilled. I mean, nobody. But there are people like who are like you, who are like, first black female chartered accountant. Do you feel the pressure of, because now you are a role model to so many people, and it's outside of your hands. Is that a lot of pressure for you, and did you feel it at the time?
At the time, I really felt it. That sobering up by that journalist. Then I realized, oh, okay, if then I'm a role model. You know, my mother used to say to my sister, you are the first carriage of the train. If you fall, then the whole train is going to fall. So those words came back to me, yo, I'm the first carriage of the train. If I fall, everybody falls. So AWSA, we're celebrating 20 years. And so I'm getting all these messages. I'm not responding to them. And the president is here, Ubusha. Guess who's in the Mabas? You've got to get her there. You've got to get her there. So I'm like, when are you going to let me go? You know, it's been 35 years. You take over now, you guys. So they're never going to let me forget it.
Is it lonely, though? Because when you read the book, there are so many firsts. So first black female chartered accountant. First Gobodo. First on some boards. And you are mostly the only female or the only black female. Does it get lonely when you are that first and you don't have the solidarity of your fellow black sisters, your fellow black brothers who understand the culture, who understand the difficult journey you've had?
I always say that we're those pioneers who had to figure this thing out as we're going, you know. And we had no role models. Prof. Kutlu was a role model, but he was a man. And so you sort of had to figure this out and realize also that if you don't make it in these bottoms, even from back then as a manager, as an executive, then, all other women will be treated the same way. So which is why I decided very early to fight my way through.
Did you put pressure on yourself? Because it's almost like you didn't leave the door open for any failure. Even when your dad was worried about you when you were waiting for your results after writing your exams, and you were like, there is no other choice. I'm passing and I'm going to be a chartered accountant. And they were worried. Your vision of a big black accounting firm, you were very resolute about it. And you were like, there's no other choice. Either it happens or it doesn't.
Yeah, remember, we grew up in a society where we're told that there were things that we couldn't accomplish. That always was at the back of my mind, that I'm going to prove that there's nothing I cannot do. So it became that theme behind everything that I did, that I can't fail. Because then I prove that there are things that I can't do. That's why I'm very cross with Liz Truss. I'm very cross with her. Very, very cross. Because we don't want those mistakes at that level. Yeah. So, because, there are all these young ones who are coming after us. So if as black women, we don't make it, then they lose hope also. So it was a lot of pressure.
You speak about how difficult it was to manage being a single mom, especially later on, and building a career. And I'm going to read this part. I have wondered if I should have slowed down or set less ambitious goals for myself. I realized that the market would not have waited for me. I'm still happy with my choice. I would have regretted it if I had sacrificed for my children. They grow up and they pursue their own dreams. I now live alone while they're living their own lives. I'm always grateful for any time they give me these days and any holiday that they spend with me. Tell us about the guilt you felt when you were working so hard to build your own career and to make sure that your children are also comfortable financially while you were not spending so much time with them.
No, you know, these are sort of choices that we make in life. And I think my mother made that choice of being a career woman. And I suppose being raised by her, it was sort of easy for me. I mean, she never verbalized it, but I'm sure she made that choice. And it was very hard on us as kids. My mom was a nurse and she's never there, you know. And then you are always weighing your responsibilities towards your children. And unfortunately, our culture imposes such a huge responsibility on the women for you know, looking after the home and keeping the home together. And even when I was married, I was carrying this big load. But after the divorce, it was even worse. Now, there was not even anybody who could be there for the kids. And the guilt was terrible. I would cry in hotel rooms for my kids that I've left for a whole year building Gobodo Inc. Or Tabo Abo no Khati. They wouldn't even realize the sacrifices. They see this matriarch, you know. And when later on in life, they remind you on Ginki, Utina had a different response to this whole thing. But Ginki, no, Mnweba. Unfortunately, Mnweba is not here. He had to go to London on business. I'm so sorry, he's not here. Then Mnweba says, remember, Mama, when you used to leave me?
We last born tendencies.
With Umakulu. You're not even there. Preschool graduation, yeah. I'm like, you're 20. Why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about this? You're 20 years.
Yeah.
After a while, I realized that no, there are wounds here, you know. And these wounds had to be faced. And I had to stop making excuses. That sure, I couldn't go to every, you know, rugby match. And that used to be hard, you know, when your child says, Kule trip, Mama, can you be the one? I'm always traveling with other moms, you know. Yeah, and I would pass it in one, but then never another one.
That's interesting. I was reading Dina's input, and you look at it and you're feeling guilty, but Dina, in his input, says he feels like you afforded some level of, so you allowed him to be himself and take his own decisions. And he does question in the book that he still doesn't know if that was deliberate or if it was just a function of the circumstance. Because he had a lot of independence, you know, and you were busy, but he didn't complain much. You know, and he, when he was at St. John's, he speaks about how one day you just rocked up. I think he had a rugby match, and you just rocked up, and that meant so much for him. So sometimes you don't see you know, you think, it was just one rugby match, but I suppose it means a lot for them, because that's one thing that he mentions in his input. Let's talk about the failures now, because the thing about when we look at a powerhouse like you, someone who's so successful, who's built this career, we never hear about the difficulties of getting there. And that's so important to inspire and encourage other people. And I want us to start maybe with what I think you referred to the book as a mistake, your disagreements with Cindy when you started the company. And because in the book you are very honest to say we allowed, you know, our own personal issues to get in the way. What lessons did you learn about that? Because you were building a business and it was very successful, but then your own personal tensions messed it up?
I was hoping we wouldn't start with that. Again, I mean, you struggle with how to tell the story. And because you were journeying with other people, and but I then really decided that no, the story has to be told because people have to learn from these lessons. I think at the time you are building this business and Cindy is the problem. Cindy thinks I'm the problem, and these fights start and they start growing and growing and growing. Eventually you realize that, it's time to part ways and things like that. But reflecting back now, you realize that actually, wonder. Because when you reflect later, you see the immaturity, you see how foolish the whole thing was. That maybe as young people, we should be allowed to make those mistakes, and learn from them. Because how can you ever grow without them? But at the time, they are so big to you. But I think both of us, Cindy, we grew from that experience, because you cannot go through challenges and not grow. But then you become passionate to tell the young ones not to fall for those same traps, But unfortunately, they do. And I reflected on that, and I was like, no, I think young people must be allowed to go through their own challenges and make their own mistakes so that they can learn from them.
Yeah. Another mistake you refer to in the book is leaving Gobodo Inc. You worked very hard to build Gobodo Inc. And now you left it and you said, I'm joining the church. Why was that a big mistake?
So, again, you are young, you don't understand yourself. You don't understand your personality. And after we've built this big thing, you are sort of bored now because there's a lot of operational, responsibilities and so on. And you just want to move on, let's build the next big thing. And I mean, people are not ready for the next big thing. But at that time when you are young, you think, black people, they'll never grow. My sister and I had a big vision of changing the world. So I partnered with her to develop leaders to change South Africa and Africa. But you left your own natural terrain as a businesswoman, and you're fiddling in a church, and it's a different animal altogether. And you're trying to shape what you're doing there, with what you're doing. Because in business, yes, we move, man. We make decisions and we move, and so on. And but again, you realize that it is all part of this journey of life, Until you do something that is not you, how would you know what is really you? Because after that experience, I knew that I'm no business.
Yeah.
This thing of business, I love it.
You left before you fulfilled your vision.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have always wanted to build and establish this big black accounting firm. And when you left Gobodo Inc., that vision, and you say in the book that the partners you had at the time were not ready for that, and that frustrated you. So when you go back this time around and you are building Gobodo Inc., you are discussing measures now. And by the way, I didn't know how complex measures are. I just thought you sit down with different partners like, oh, let's sign, we're coming together, one family. It is so complex. So take us through that journey of now the mistakes were made, and we'll come back to the 11 years of wilderness when you were out of your comfortable space. When you go back now to build this vision, what motivated you?
Well, so you recover from this wilderness and you have to, find a way back to a life. And I don't really want to go back to the profession. I'm grappling with this because I'm like, I know, they don't want this big black firm. And that's the only reason I would go back. And I'm grappling with God. And Sathi is talking to me to come back. I'm like, no, I don't think so. But eventually you realize that, okay, this is what you want to do. I don't understand. I remember when I went back to Gobodo, I used to be driving to work and would be like, I know I have to do this, but I don't know. I'm not sure, I think it was later on that I settled down and I realized that I have unfinished business. I started something and I need to go back and finish it. That's when I settled down and I was like, I don't care how long they take. I can take forever. But fortunately, God works miraculously because it happened quicker than I thought. But again, I always say, Gobodo Inc. for me, the original Gobodo, is the one thing that I achieved that I'm most proud of. Because we were digging the foundation there, from scratch, with nothing. S&G, you were building from something that was there. There was Gobodo, there was Sizwe, Tsaluba. We were medium-sized businesses. Anyway, it was a question of putting these two businesses together. But I suppose Victor is here. I don't think we imagine how difficult it would be. Yeah, it was hard.
Still on S&G, it was so complex because you're bringing in these two established businesses into one. The culture is different. There are compromises you have to make, which, in the book, you talk about how it became Sizwe and Tsaluba Gobodo. You wanted Gobodo, Tsaluba, Sizwe. But now it's Sizwe and Tsaluba Gobodo. How did you let that go? Because it was who becomes CEO? Which name comes first? And at some point as a leader, you need to go, okay, what's the bigger vision?
Exactly. So I think, you negotiate a merger. There are difficult things you have to go, through and overcome and agree to. And Victor and myself, we focused on those big things. We thought things of names and things were small, And Upatlete, who was our lawyer for the merger, warned us at the beginning. Start with the name. We're like, no name. Can't be a big issue. It was a deal breaker. So we get these frantic calls from Victor. Partners, they want their name first and their full name first. Sizwe and Tsaluba, all of it there. The Gobodo partners are like, no, but Nonkululeko is the only founder left. Gobodo should be in front. And, so now we're going through this journey, wrangling around the name and things like that. And then I woke up one day. I was like, no, this vision is bigger than me. It's bigger than all of us. The name of this company is Sizwe and Tsaluba Gobodo.
I want us to talk about you being awakened to your true self. The reason I told you that chapter 5 is my favorite book is because you inspired me to start my own journey of healing. Because you talk a lot about childhood traumas, and that's not something we talk a lot about. There are so many things that we have pushed under the carpet because we are here now, so why must we focus there? But until you actually deal and you nurse, and in the book you say parent that inner child, until you do that, you're not going to move anywhere. How did you become awakened to your true self? You speak about the 11 years of wilderness. Is that when you decided, I need to go within and reflect because you saw you were not happy, something was not okay?
No, the journey of healing, what I found is that why maybe we don't embark on it is because it's a journey, you know, and I was really committed to my journey of healing because I was just tired of falling into making the same mistake and falling over the same mistakes and things like that. But I think during those wilderness years, I reflected and I dealt with a lot of things. And I thought, wow, I was done, you know, because rejection is when I dealt with rejection in those years. Because I thought maybe rejection was the biggest stumbling block. But later on, you realize that you're still not okay, you know? And you're like, okay, what do I do now? And you have to dig again and find new things that you have to deal with. And for me, religion and spirituality were always a big part of my life. That's why I have a whole chapter in my book about religion, my journey with religion and spirituality. Because I was a spiritual person, I could persevere, you know, because I don't think if I was not a spiritual person, I would have persevered. Because there was this issue of being two people. One strong, powerful, doing big things. The other one making big mistakes. And this used to be confusing to me. When I've lost this big one, then this new one would emerge. And I would be so stuck with her, or him, or her, or whatever. And I wouldn't even recognize myself. I would wonder, but why is that one? The one I know. And I had to deal with this thing of being two people because it was just confusing. And then what I would find the Nonkululeko I know, I would fly again, and something would happen, and that one will come back again. I'm like, overlapping or when. So I'm trying to say that I'm glad that my journey of healing was difficult. And I'm glad that God encouraged me to be open and honest about it, you know, because I realized that people are not prepared to open those wounds because they are painful to open. But if you persevere and suddenly you could bring those two personalities together and become one person, and then that's when I could say, I found my true self. You know, I'm no longer confused now. I'm no longer two people.
Me and Manda read the book and we had a conversation yesterday because you are a leadership coach yourself, Manda, and you know about the imposter syndrome. And I want us to talk a little bit about that. And maybe let's start with you. When did you feel it in your journey? When did you start experiencing it? Did you doubt yourself at some point?
All the time. All the time. You always start from that place of doubting yourself.
Yeah.
I remember when I wanted to establish Gobodo Incorporated, I was, in Amtata. It's a small town. I'm known there. When I'm knocking on doors, when I sit down, ngena mamtembu. Mtambukas, and then you think about, I've outgrown this little town, but I'm scared of Johannesburg. How am I going to survive in Johannesburg? And you go through that fear. I remember I grappled with that fear for a year of I won't make it in Joburg. And then you get to Joburg and you make it. You're like, yeah, I did it, man. I did it. So the imposter syndrome never goes away. It's always, in spite of all your achievements, you always start from that place of doubting yourself. And you really feel like such a hypocrite because people are looking up to you. They don't know when they're celebrating you. I was scared to start writing this book. I was like, I'm not a writer, man. It's always there.
When I read something, I think this is a powerful paragraph in the book, probably my favorite paragraph, and I'll contrast it with where we find ourselves. You say in page 90, A vision will always be challenged. That has been my experience. I learned never to allow setbacks to discourage me from my vision. Once I get clarity about what I want to do next, I focus on it. I do not allow anything to distract me from achieving my goal. So we are in this, they call it the distracted generation, right? The browsing generation. Apparently, an average person kind of swipes 4 to 6 kilometers a day. Sure. Yeah. And on average, we pick up our phones every 6 minutes. So we're distracted. At the back of that, you say that you never allow anything to distract you from your goal. What can you say to our generation that's browsing the whole time?
Yeah.
I'm on 60 kilometers.
You know, when you have a vision, the vision is a powerful thing. It's a sort of the force of creating anything. Anything starts with an idea in your head, a vision. And unless you focus on it and you are committed, you will not accomplish it, I can assure you.
Sure.
So, but I'm saying that a vision will always be challenged.
Yeah.
I'm challenged now. My sister hears me crossing, it's my big day, I'm excited. And during the day, my voice is just going because I was coughing.
Sure.
What do you do? Do you quit?
Sure.
No, you come here and with your hoarse voice and focus on it.
Sure.
So what I'm saying is that when those distractions come, those challenges that are saying you can't do it, you can either, and I share many of those challenges in the book, you can either flow with those challenges and give up on your dream and your vision. But when you are committed to your vision and you are focused, I would keep saying, in spite of this, I'm not quitting. I'm still going to achieve my vision. And that stickiness to your vision is the one that will overcome all those challenges. That you'll meet. You will definitely, when you have a vision, you will definitely meet them.
Let's talk a little bit about transformation, and then we're going to go to the questions, because that's another big part of the book. And sometimes when you start a big black firm or any black or female-owned company, there's a mistake that sometimes people make to think, oh, because I'm female, they will give me the tender. Or because I'm black, they will give me a tender. And I like Dean's input in the book because he gives an example of when you had just you had just tendered for a big contract in one of the SOEs, and you guys were strategizing on how you're going to go about it. And one of the partners or one of the managers at SNG said, we're a big black firm. The minister likes big black firms anyway, so we're going to get the tender. And you stood up and said, no. If that's what's going to define this company, then I want nothing to do with it. People must come to us not because we are a black firm, but because we are capable and we can do the job. So help us understand that thinking that we need to divorce ourselves from, to feel entitled just because, oh, it's a female-owned, it's a black-owned, and we think capability is not a big factor.
That's why I really just want now to dedicate my life to Awakened. Because I've always had this burden of, we're always told as black people and as women that we can't do certain things and so on. And we've allowed that to define us, And although I've always resisted being defined by a system and things like that, but I was living in that system. And although, there was a struggle and we've achieved a lot around that struggle, one thing that always used to bother me was like, we're always waiting for the other side to change. Men must change and then we'll be okay as women. White people must change and then we'll be okay as black people. And that's why when that's that mentality in a business that we're going to depend now on our blackness, I could never agree with that, because then you are allowing yourself to be defined by a system. And I believe that it's time now to stop the excuses and begin to attend to who we truly are and find our authentic selves and our authentic power. Because I don't care. There is no force in the world that can stand against that.
In the book, you talk about learning and unlearning, and all of us have stuff to unlearn. Maybe you work in your company and there's a white manager that you somehow respect more than the black manager, and you're not thinking about it, right? It's subconscious. But those are the kind of things you need to unlearn. And in the book, you emphasize that responsibility on us, right? And stop looking at, oh, white people have to stop being racist, right? It's how do we also stop seeing ourselves as inferior, right? Because if there's a white person who feels they're inferior to us by virtue of us being black, they need us to be inferior in order to feel superior. If we are not feeling inferior, they're not going to feel superior. So what's that responsibility on us to do the work in us and not just wait for the other party to change?
Yeah, I mean, this is something I really feel strongly about. And it really starts with, if you are in a relationship, husband and wife, whatever. Remember, this one thinks you are the problem, and this other one thinks you are the problem. And the problem are never solved. But when one party decides to change, okay, I'm not going to look at him or her. I'm going to focus on myself to change. Suddenly, the relationship changes. And that's when that idea came from. That, I mean, we'll wait for white people until the cows come home. Really, for our situation as black people to change. They can take their own time. But I really believe that if we could start focusing on ourselves and start seeing ourselves as inferior, even as women, seeing ourselves as inferior, because we almost, when we come in these male-dominated environments, we almost have to, submit to the situation and change ourselves, sort of change who you are so that you can make the other people around comfortable. And so I'm saying it is time now to start this journey of forget them. Let's focus on ourselves and see where it will get us. Because I tell you, white people in the room, some of them are my friends, and I love you very much. They need someone to be inferior for them to remain superior. If black people would stop seeing themselves as inferior, who are they superior to? Who are they superior to? That's why there is just such a push against this search now to end racism. It's because they're going to lose their whole identity is around this issue of, then I lose my whole identity of superiority. But that's not our problem, guys. The fact that they will lose their identity of superiority, we want to lose ours of inferiority.
Our philosophy at Awakened is to focus on the individual within the disadvantaged groups, black people and women, so that they take responsibility for changing their circumstances. There's too much focus on the privileged groups, white people and men, to change to solve the problems of racism and sexism. Black people and women have a role to play in bringing about the needed change. They need to find their true identity and release themselves from the false identity that has been socialized by society based on the myths that were invented about them, because they are social constructs, right?
Yes.